Young Adult Podcast.
Welcome to podcast 145, everybody. Welcome. So glad that you're with us today. And happy to announce we're back.
We're back.
And slowly making improvements, might I say.
That's right. You didn't go on strike
I did.
for a week.
I said I would go on strike until Tuesday, and it did.
Now he's back.
Back, baby.
Come on.
Wait, why was I going on strike? I forget.
You were only going to go on strike if we didn't get
double.
100 times
Oh.
more interaction on YouTube.
And you know what? We did not get 100 times more interaction on YouTube, so I went on strike, but I said I was going to go on strike until Tuesday, and guess what today is?
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
We're back.
We're back, baby.
All right. I have not looked at this. I did listen to our last podcast.
Well, I must say, are you going to check the quality?
I'm gonna look at our YouTube views.
All right.
See if what the interaction was. I have not done this at all. So let's see.
Well, it's not 100x, I can tell you that.
It's not 100 times.
No, 100 times would be like 20, over 2,000 maybe views. Would be like 100 times. This is interesting podcast material, just
Just you staring at me?
me staring at you while you stare at your phone. This feels like a normal real life hangout, though.
Yeah.
Just
All right.
sitting by each other, staring at our phones.
Wow, some of our podcasts are doing better than I thought.
I agree. Yeah.
On YouTube specifically.
Hate to toot our own horn, but here we go, huh?
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, our last one,
It's not there yet.
it's not there yet.
It's not there. I know why, too.
Why is that?
Well, this is a fake reason why, but it's because we accidentally recorded in 720 when
right.
I was telling everybody,
We were recording in 4K.
and we accidentally, because the camera's new and we messed up the settings.
We messed up the settings, yes.
And we recorded in 720, but we've adjusted the camera settings, actually. Right now we're filming in 1080p.
That's right.
And we set up two more cameras.
We got two new cameras.
So
well,
we
two
have-
more cameras.
Yeah, so now we have a total of 3 cameras. And so I look at my camera and I say, hello.
I'm looking at my camera. How's it going, everybody?
You've got a very personal relationship with your camera
With
over
just
there. And I've got a very personal relationship with my camera
Yeah,
over here.
this middle camera, it's just kind of there. It's collecting all the information, but that's my camera.
So we are letting our audience know that we are trying to make improvements to the podcast
Yes.
on YouTube.
Yes.
There's nothing else we can do to the, what do they call it? Spotify,
podcast, Apple Podcast.
I mean, we've got world's best audio, so there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're running all-star sound. So
It's actually what we call it, All-Star Sound. It's the settings we put in
it's
there.
a set. Yeah, it's literally a setting we created.
Yeah.
But so it can't get much better than all-stars.
And-
That's where the best in the world go.
I feel like we're a little lost here on the opening, Pastor Aaron. I feel a little lost.
Yeah.
When it comes to the opening conversation.
Yeah.
Because our opening conversation is typically Lions,
Right.
but if not Lions, then maybe Super Bowl.
Right.
But that's all behind us now.
It's all behind us. And I thought
I'm lost a little bit.
I thought you were going to say this. I actually anticipated this.
I feel lost.
And I want to bring a little bit of direction to your lostness. All right, I'm gonna try to help
Lost
out.
in the woods.
This is only for this week, so next week we're gonna have to figure something else out.
All right.
But right now, the NHL is in the middle of their All-Star break,
It's okay.
but they did something brand new this year, where they created this. They're calling it the Four Nations Face-Off Tournament.
Yeah, that first game between USA and Canada was epic.
Yes, and as of we're recording Tuesday, so as of yesterday, Monday, the finals is set. It's locked in, and it will actually happen the day this podcast releases on Thursday.
On Thursday, there's a final game between USA and Canada.
And it's a rematch between USA and Canada.
You know what I learned the first game?
What did you learn?
You do not boo our national anthem. Just say. I mean, I learned it. I learned that.
You can't argue with that.
Now, we were chatting about this because I don't know the full story of all this.
Right.
I didn't watch it live.
Yeah.
I saw the aftermath. And what happened was specifically, the God's honest truth is, I think I turned the game on a minute and a half into the first period.
Yeah.
And the announcers were at a fever pitch with their tone. And they kept talking about how there was just 3 fights in 9 seconds. And there was booing of the national anthem.
Yeah.
But there also appeared to be some bad blood from the past that I wasn't quite picking up on.
Yeah.
But there was anger between the teams before the games even started.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how, because I don't know all the backstories.
Yeah.
And this is the first time this format's ever taken place. And before the first ever matchup between USA and Canada, there's bad blood somehow. I couldn't piece it all together.
Yeah.
But I do know there was national anthems, and so the game was in Canada.
Yeah.
And there's tension between Canada and USA right now because Trump and tariffs and Trudeau and tariffs.
Yeah.
So we're really upset about tariffs and border security.
Yeah.
And so, and economies.
Right.
We're very upset about economies and tariffs.
Oh, yeah.
And so I will. So the next logical connecting point is fight on the ice.
Absolutely.
Fight on the ice.
Fight on the ice.
And if Trump and Trudeau would have said, we'll settle this on the ice, I would have been like, this is the greatest world diplomacy I've ever witnessed in my entire life.
Absolutely.
We're going to settle this on the
Oh,
ice.
yeah.
Whoever wins.
Yeah.
Wins the tariff war. That's it. I mean, I guess that's what we're at. Is that the whole story?
I think there's a little bit of bad blood with the U.S. and Canada Olympic hockey teams.
Okay, so there's a past here.
There's a past where there has been multiple times where it's been U.S. and Canada in the finals in the Olympics. And there's been some bad blood in the Olympics because of that. And so I think, most of those players have never even been on those teams.
So they're just kind of like...
But they're just carrying it.
Generational hurt.
Yeah. And they're just carrying it onto the ice.
I'm for it. I'm here for it. I'm in love with it. I'm here for it. I want more of it.
First game, U.S. and Canada, was just so intense.
I watched it. Like I said, I started tuning in about a minute and a half into the first period, and I could tell the pace of play was Stanley Cup Finals-ish.
Yeah, it was insane. So if you have not been watching any of this, that's totally okay. I know our hockey fan audience is probably much smaller than our football fan audience.
Yeah.
But it was an incredible game, and the day this releases, Thursday night, is the final. And this time it's in the U.S.
Really?
And
where's it at? Do we know? Do you know?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know it's in the U.S.
Wow.
So
are we going to boo the Canadian national anthem?
I don't know. So what I was going to actually ask you was, I had two questions for you. Do you think the U.S. is going to boo the Canadian national anthem?
Oh my gosh.
And then number two is, if you make a pick, who you taking? U.S. versus Canada rematch.
Nice. Oh man. This is funny how we're like, we got to bet on something.
Yeah.
Or we got to make a bet.
We got to make a prediction about something.
We got to predict something around here. Football's done. Okay, I like this. This is great. Oh, this is a fantastic questions. Oh my gosh. Okay. Will the fans boo the Canadian national anthem? I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say there's some revenge.
Yeah.
It's best served on a cold plate.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to do it. And also, I think Canada's going to match our energy.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be a much closer, game.
Yeah.
I think it'll come down to the wire.
Yeah.
Like you're talking like there's going to be a 1 goal difference last few minutes of the game. One team's going to have to pull the goalie to try to tie the game up. It's going to be a wild finish to the end. And I'm going to predict USA wins.
Okay. So I have a very similar prediction. I also think that the U.S. fans are going to boo the national anthem, the Canadian one. And I think, so U.S. lost their last game to Sweden. And I think that they are going to come into this game against Canada just so fired up. Canada's going to match their energy. And I think it's going to come down to the last second. Somebody's going to have to pull their goalie. And it's going to either be somebody's going to score an empty netter to win it, or they're going to have that 6-man advantage and score.
Do they typically pull goalies at a tie game in the end? I don't typically see that.
Yeah, not typically. Typically, it's to tie it, to send it into overtime.
You're my hockey guy.
I don't know if I should be your hockey guy. I'm not like a hockey guy. I like watching hockey.
Out of the two of us, you know slightly more about hockey, so you're my hockey guy. I'm looking around. I got nobody else here.
There's nobody else here.
You're my hockey
so I
guy.
guess by default, it's me.
I got hockey questions for you, so you're gonna have to answer them. So come prepared.
All right, but I think U.S. is going to win in the end. I think U.S. is going to pull it out.
All right, sweet. Okay,
That's my prediction.
great questions here to start this off.
Yeah.
Let's fade into our real topic today.
Yeah, I like it. This is going to be a good one today.
I want to talk about compromise.
Compromise.
I was listening to a preacher
Okay.
last week. I was studying, writing messages, and this preacher said a statement that made me think, is that really true?
Yeah.
And the statement was this: the hardest act of a leader is to ensure that there is no compromise. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I really? Are we sure about that?
Right. Yeah.
And then I started thinking about compromise in ministry
Yeah.
and compromise at a business,
Yeah.
compromise in my personal life, compromise in my family, compromise in my work ethic.
Yep.
And I started thinking to myself, I think the hardest thing that I do on a daily basis is self-discipline,
Yeah. Yep.
which essentially means I'm trying to root out compromise.
Yeah. You're rooting out compromise and you're trying to create a atmosphere of excellence in your life, your family, your organization, your ministry, your business, throughout the whole thing.
And so this preacher's like, the hardest thing for every leader is to ensure there's no compromise within the ministry,
Yeah.
within the organization. And I'm like, now I'm really thinking about it. And I'm thinking to myself, I might agree with him. The more I think about it,
Yeah.
the more I agree with him.
Yeah.
Let me give you a hypothetical situation and tell me what you think
Okay.
a leader would do in this situation.
Okay.
So the hypothetical situation is this. You are the boss.
Okay.
You own a business. You are the lead pastor. Whatever your title you want to give yourself is fine. You're the
All right.
boss.
All right.
Right? And you have an employee who needs this job in order to survive
Okay.
in life.
Yeah.
They aren't wealthy beyond this job. They don't have anybody else to provide for them beyond this job. They're single.
Okay.
And they have this job. And as far as a person goes, they are the salt of the earth, and they're a great person, but they're bad at their job.
yeah.
As a leader, you have to decide, do I employ this person because I care about them and I don't want to see them struggle in
Yeah.
life,
Right.
and this is a job that pays them and enables them to live.
Right. Right.
But at the same time, this person's bad at their job, and they do compromising work.
Right.
Now, as a boss,
Yeah.
here's the great dilemma. And I bet every single person is now kind of thinking through my
Yeah, yeah.
hypothetical situation here.
They're mulling it over.
Do I keep this person on because I care about them beyond the work and beyond the
Right.
title
Right.
and beyond what they produce for me, because they're a human being,
Yeah.
and it'd be a terrible thing to fire them?
Yeah.
Or do I care more about the clientele who's suffering
Right.
because this person's doing bad work
Yeah.
and making people mad and making me mad
Yeah.
because I have to frustrated with the work. The clients hate the product or the service.
Right.
It doesn't matter what it is. It's just they're like, I mean, have you ever went and got a bad haircut?
No.
Okay, I have.
Yeah.
I am frustrated that this person just gave me a bad haircut. I wish that they were just not even there.
Right.
So that everybody in the room was a great giving haircut. So that no matter what barber or stylist I got,
right.
I was going to get a great haircut.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that hairdresser is a human being
right.
and they need a job.
Yeah.
So my heart goes out to them thinking to myself, well, okay, maybe they'll get better.
Yeah.
So they need to stay on.
Yeah.
Where do you compromise at?
Yeah.
How do you figure out what to do?
Yeah. Great hypothetical question. And I want to answer like Michael Scott. I would not fire them and they would be a great employee.
Yes. I think that's what everybody wants.
But unfortunately, that's not really an option.
Yeah.
And I think that some of those, scenarios and there might not all be a one size fits all answer. But I think that especially, and this is what I was thinking about as you were talking about this, in church world especially, our mission, our vision, our organization moving forward is more than dollars and cents. It's more than spreadsheets. It's more than a bottom line.
It's way more than all the things that you can measure.
And because of that, we want to work with such excellence because not only, it's our job, it's what we do, but I know that there is eternal implications, that there's eternal impacts, that every Wednesday night service that we have for our teenagers, there could be a student who walks in the door and this might be their last chance. This might be the only time they've ever heard the gospel. This might be the only time they've ever stepped foot in a church. And so that understanding that there is such eternal implications drives me to want to perform and have the ministry perform at the highest level of excellence that I can, which to me, I think merits a firing or a moving or a something to that effect. I'm saying, hey, listen, I care about you as a person, but the eternal implications that are at stake with this position that you're not performing well in, I think outweighs having you here. Mm-hmm. And in certain businesses, that might not always be the case. But I think that, especially in ministry, that's the way that I would tend to look at it.
I have found personally, and I wonder if you agree with me, that holding a high standard of excellence and challenging the people in the room to continue to get better has been extremely difficult over the years.
Yeah, it's super difficult. I remember when I was an IMA student and we were getting ready for a service. It was just a regular Wednesday night. It wasn't a big event or anything like that. I was, doing all the tasks that an IMA student does. And we were getting ready to leave. It was, probably around 2:50, 10 minutes left in the day. We're kind of shutting everything down, getting ready. We got to be back here in a couple hours for church. And Pastor Evan was doing a walkthrough with me and he said, all right, do you feel like it's ready for service tonight? And I was like, yeah, I think it's ready for service tonight. And he's like, okay, what if Pastor Craig Rochelle was going to show up to Ignited tonight? Would everything be ready?
Would you be excited for him to show up?
And I looked around and I was like, I would probably clean that up. I would probably double check and make sure that all this stuff was prepped for this. Back then it was this VIP room. I would probably make sure that everything's like double checked, make sure it's all ready. I would probably, I remember there was like a few things kind of piled in an awkward spot. And I was like, well, it's, it won't really matter. And I was like, you know what? And I think I was like 18 or 19, and he kind of, and then he's like, well, doesn't the Holy Spirit show up for every service? Isn't he way more important than if Pastor Craig Rochelle showed up? Isn't the students walking in? And he kind of had this conversation, and I realized then, and that conversation has stuck with me since then, that it is so easy to fall into just a routine, just kind of doing the job, just getting it done.
Ever heard of the phrase home blindness?
Oh yeah.
So, and it comes from the idea that when you are constantly in a place, you stop seeing flaws.
Yeah.
So, perfect example would be like, a tiny scrape in the wall.
Yeah.
A paint gouged out, a crooked picture on the wall.
Yeah.
A stain on the couch.
Yep.
Things like that.
Oh yeah.
Mismatched curtains.
Yeah.
It just kind of, you'll become home blind to the environment.
Yeah.
The longer you are in an environment, I believe, kind of the more home blind you become.
Yeah.
And then you get like a fresh set of eyes to walk in the room. Maybe like a professional home decorator. What do they call those? I don't even know what you call those people.
Like interior designer, something like
Thank you.
that?
Yes, like a professional interior designer.
Yeah.
And they come in and they just start pointing out all the flaws.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, now you're you're just being mean, But the truth is that this person is essentially being paid to hold a standard of excellence,
right,
and to demand a standard of excellence.
Yeah.
And you became blind to all the flaws.
Oh yeah.
And that can happen in our homes, in our churches, in our businesses, and with ourselves.
Absolutely.
Is that we love to look in the mirror and lie about what we see.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. We were talking about that making sure compromise doesn't happen is one of the most difficult things. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes we think when I initially hear that, I think about big compromises.
Oh.
Some money got stolen. There was
an affair. A murder. You got a couple bodies in the janitor's closet.
Like some of these big compromises. So the books weren't balanced right. Just we'll pretend that didn't happen. Stuff like that. But I think that because that's initially where my mind goes. Mm-hmm. But I think that those compromises tend to not happen if the little compromises aren't happening. If when I know that today I'm supposed to go to the gym, but I'm not feeling like it, but I go to the gym. If I know that I have a personal budget. This has nothing to do with my business and my ministry. Like I have a personal budget and I'm going to stick to it, even though I really, really want that Culver's milkshake, but it would take me $4 over the budget.
That's just $4.
I'm sticking to it, right? I think when we start
But it's just $4. It's not really that much money. You can compromise.
But that's the budget.
Oh.
I got to stick to it.
You got to stick to it?
Got to stick to that budget.
Why?
And I think when we do what you said this earlier, and I thought this was brilliant. When we have self-discipline and we can lead ourselves well, and I'm not going to sit here and claim that I can lead myself perfectly. Please don't hear me saying that. This is something that I constantly am working on, reading blogs at, books at, listening to podcast messages to try to improve my self-discipline.
I think we're all trying to improve our self-discipline every day.
Yeah. But when we can learn to do that and have that being a growing process, I think it makes it easier to not have compromises in businesses, ministries, families even, and those maybe bigger things that we're leading. Mm-hmm.
Have you found that being the youth pastor here at Cornerstone Church, it is a dogfight to keep a high standard?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially on just like sometimes for a big event, we feel like, it's an outreach event. So we're going to have a really high standard tonight. We're going to make sure everything's working. But then, we just have a regular service. So, it's okay. I feel
And
like
that's really the big mistake.
right, and
I think that's where you have your fatal flaw, so to speak.
Yeah.
Is to treat the every day as if it's not that important.
right, and so I think that for me in this season of ministry, that's the biggest area where I feel like I have to constantly fight for the excellence, for the not compromising during those kind of just everyday, like regular, I guess, for the lack of a better word, services that were happening.
I have found personally the best way for church, for growth in your ministry is consistent excellence.
Yeah,
That no matter what service somebody attends, when it's probably the best service they've ever been in.
yeah,
I believe if you hold that standard, you'll see growth.
yeah,
And we chatted about this too a number of months ago now,
Yeah.
maybe 6 months ago now. And I remember telling you that you want your youth students to say subconsciously, it doesn't matter what service I invite my friends to, no matter what, it's going to be awesome.
yeah,
That's what you want your students to subconsciously think.
yeah,
And so that's kind of how you start to get growth.
yeah,
And if you want to have if you want your Wednesday night services to have that feel,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to fight for
yeah.
excellence.
You got to fight for excellence for sure, for
And
sure.
You're gonna naturally speaking, you're gonna have volunteers show up tired,
Yep.
late,
Oh yeah.
late,
Yeah.
unaware.
Yep.
Can't figure out how to maybe like fix certain things and like da 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 da. And like you might have to spend some time, troubleshooting.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Half our lights are out tonight, Pastor. Sorry. Well, we still have about 20 minutes before students come in. Maybe we could
Yeah.
figure this out.
Let's try to figure this out. Yeah.
And so instead of saying, yeah, you're right. What's the big deal? It's just lights.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of is a big deal
Oh, yeah.
in some aspects, especially if you've promised yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to do things with excellence.
Yeah.
Then it kind of feels like a big deal to you.
Absolutely.
And not everybody understands that.
Yeah.
You've found that to be true?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And you kind of sound like, you turn into like this crazy leader. Like, it's not, Pastor Aaron, relax. It's okay. And you're in your mind, you're going, no, because I had promised myself I wanted to do everything with excellence, and this is not falling in line with what I want,
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to fight for it sometimes.
You absolutely do. And I think that you see this all over the place. Have you ever been to a business, Pastor Luke, and maybe it's somewhere where you've frequented, or maybe it's your first time, I don't know, and you have learned there's an employee or maybe a certain like spot, maybe it's like the location in Fenton or Holly, or like, I like this business overall, but I don't want that employee. I don't want to go to that restaurant. I don't want to go to that location.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh, I don't want to like throw businesses under the bus.
Yeah.
But there's certain like chain restaurants
Yeah.
that I will not go to in certain towns
Yeah.
because
yeah.
whoever's managing that store,
Right.
it is so bad.
And
But I love the restaurant.
Yeah, it's frustrating because, the one in this town, a town over, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I love going there.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah.
But, this one over here, it's not good. And why does that happen? It's because the leader, the manager, the person who's in charge of making sure that everything is happening with excellence is not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
They've let compromise seep in to that organization, to that group, or even to that employee. I remember hearing a great pastor. It's actually Pastor Marcus Minka, and
down in Seven Hills
Seven
Church.
Hills Church, and he was doing a talk at one of the conferences we've got to go to about culture, and he said culture it's what you allow to happen, and it's what you celebrate. He said because what you celebrate will eventually get repeated. You know, when you see somebody getting saved and you celebrate that, when you see an volunteer, an employee working really hard and you celebrate that, he's like, that'll get repeated. He's like, but also what you tolerate will get repeated. The mistakes that you just tolerate and say, it's okay, you know, don't worry about it. He's like, those will eventually start to get repeated too. And he said, so your culture at your organization begins to become a blend of what you celebrate and what you tolerate. And he said, so sometimes that means you have to you have to nip things in the bud that is uncomfortable. You would rather just tolerate it.
Yeah.
And he's like, but you have to go after that and say, hey, we can't have this mistake be made again.
Yes.
And I remember him talking about that. I'd never heard anyone phrase it like that. And it really captured my attention and was like, you know, I think that's really true and something that I've been trying since then to work on at getting better at creating, because I think that's a big part of the culture of an organization, the culture of a ministry, the culture of a family. You can tell pretty quickly, does compromise happen a lot here or not, you know?
So let's wrap this entire topic up with one sentence.
Okay.
The best leaders are the ones who are just insufferable. Just joking.
I don't think that's true either.
The best leaders are the ones who don't let the employees get away with anything. No, that's not it. Yes, but no.
Right.
The best leaders are the ones who refuse to settle. And they almost are kind of labeled like neurotic,
Yeah.
you know, overbearing.
Yeah.
Never, they won't relax.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to that. There's a reason that the boss is always neurotic and can't relax and,
Yeah.
you know, maybe it's not everybody's best friend.
Right.
I always found it was more fun to be one of the employees than to be the boss.
Yeah.
Michael Scott.
Michael Scott. All episode, I've wanted to make so many Michael. I wanted to keep us on track because it's such an important discussion, but I've so many times.
You had office jokes in your head you weren't saying?
So many.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, I wish you would have said them.
Oh. Well, it was like we're having a serious conversation. It would have
know.
totally derailed us, but I had multiple in my head.
I wish you would have said them. How would you describe this podcast today? This was a combination of like maybe like a crock pot full of like beef.
Like a beef roast over some rice.
Yeah, some roast with some gravy,
Yeah.
some rice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
a beef roast in
Beef
the
roast.
crock pot.
Like a nice gravy, scoop it over the top of some rice. That's what this podcast was.
Yeah, it was. It was exactly that. It's like you can't argue that.
Try. I dare you. You can't.
Wow. It's been great to be with you today, audience. Catch you on the next one.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Youth and Young Adult Podcast. Youth and Young Adult Podcast. Youth and Young Adult Podcast.